Golden State Media Concepts social media podcast. Time to hashtag everything. We talk about all the fun, crazy stories on social media, from Instagram to Facebook, Twitter to Tumblr, or probably even Friendster. Join us each week as we explore the quirky side of social media. It's the Golden State Media Concepts social media podcast.
It's simple, such a sad song. The one that we rely on to get us.
Hello, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of the GSMC Social Media News Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Shamaria Jackson. In today's episode, we're going to be talking all about COVID-19, different places that are opening back up, and some places that are actually not looking forward to opening back up, and they're actually resisting opening back up, not only their states, but businesses as well. All right, what I first wanted to start off with is, Missouri becoming the first state to resume concerts and live events as of Monday. So Missouri's Governor Mike Parson is gearing up to open the state and resume concerts and live events as of Monday, May 4th, making it the first in the United States to do so amid the coronavirus pandemic. In Governor Parsons' reopening plan, which also permits retail stores to welcome customers in limited quantities and restaurants to allow dine-ins for live events, he dictates that seatings shall be spaced out according to social distancing requirements, which is 6 feet apart. He adds, quote, "There are currently no limitations on social gatherings as long as necessary precautions are taken and 6 feet of distance can be maintained between individuals and or families," end quote. Despite his plans to reopen, mayors in the state's major cities such as St. Louis, Springfield, and Kansas City have zero intentions on following suit. St. Louis's mayor, Lydia Crewson, stated, quote, "Though portions of the state will begin to slowly reopen on Monday, St. Louis will not. While we are developing a phased approach for our own reopening, the city's stay-at-home orders remain in place. We will continue to be guided by data and not by dates," end quote. My opinion about this is I actually agree, wholeheartedly with what the mayor of St. Louis has stated. You have to go by what your data is telling you and not by dates, not by, what people want. I mean, and I hate to say it because I'm one of those people who, they are getting a little stir crazy, but at the end of the day, this is something to ensure that you are safe. I understand that, again, I've said this in my past podcasts. I understand that people are overwhelmed and they're getting stir crazy and that they are ready to resume life as it was normally. But there is no way that you can go back to living a normal life after dealing with something such as this. You can't expect things to go back to normal. And as far as what the governor said, Governor Parsons said about having people 6 feet apart, it sounds nice, but do I think that it will actually work out in that way? No, I just don't. You don't know who exactly you're dealing with. So you have to take precautions for the people who are doing tickets, the precautions for the people who are in security, the artist, backstage people, producers, sound people. It takes a lot in order to create a concert. So you're having to have the staff, make sure the staff is well, and make sure that hopefully they don't have any coronavirus symptoms. But then you have to also make sure that the customers, the people who are coming into these said concerts, also, do not have the symptoms of the COVID-19. And also in my past podcasts, I've also said you never know who may or may not have the COVID-19 because, they may not have symptoms. So it's just going to be very interesting to see, how exactly they plan on doing that. I think it's a nice thought out plan to, say, okay, well, this person gets to sit here and this person gets to sit here. But do I feel like it will work out in that way? No. I mean, you also have to think, when you're at a concert, you're up, you're standing, you're yelling. When you're yelling, initially some spit comes out. Okay. That's just a natural thing. So, what about the person in front of you, or what about the person behind you? How are they going to fit, that amount of people in there? That goes into how are tickets going to be affected? What are the limitations going to be for the people in that said concert? Again, it's a nice thought, but when it comes down to an actual plan, I just don't think that it's going to work out. There was another thing that Governor Parsons said, which was, allowing certain people to come in and dine into certain restaurants, or even limiting the people who can come into a store or a retail store. And again, that sounds really well, especially for a retail store, because believe it or not, a lot of retail stores, they've always had a limited capacity, but for right now, it's just going to be interesting to see how that unfolds when it's that back to school time. Or even when we go into Thanksgiving, how is that going to work for Black Friday or even for Christmas shopping? I understand, those are way, 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 down the line, but will that still be affected during those months? As far as restaurants go, I don't think the workers, the employees, as well as some of the customers will ever be the same. I don't think there will ever be that same carefree attitude that we once had, where we could go in a restaurant and just live life without overthinking it. There used to be a time where someone across, the restaurant could cough or sneeze, and people would be like, oh, yeah, that's nasty. But, go on about your life. But now it's like if someone coughs or if they're sneezing, then someone automatically says, oh, that person has coronavirus. They have to get away from me. I have to get out of here. I have to have hand sanitizer. It's never going to be the same. And with that being said, I totally agree once again with what the mayor of St. Louis stated. You have to look at your data. You have to look at who is being affected. And at the end of the day, Will it make some people angry because they want things to go back to normal? Yes. But if it's to, make sure that everyone is safe, I think that's just a price that some people are going to have to pay. And, I don't know if you guys ever grew up with this, but my mom always said it's better safe than sorry. So it's better that you're safe at home, bored, and, having to deal with this than going out too early and contracting the COVID-19 and possibly, spreading it to your loved ones. So with that being said, that is the end of this first segment. In the next segment, I wanted to talk about Italy and how it is finally reopening after 2 months of being closed. All of that coming up after this break. Stay tuned.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Do you want to be healthier, yet you just don't know what to do? All these shows telling you this and that, but nothing seems to work. Well, listen close. Golden State Media Concepts has got something great for you. The Health and Wellness Podcast, dedicated to workout trends, healthy eating habits, diet, and everything about healthy living. Join us in our banters as we help you not just live life to the fullest, but live it to the healthiest.
Hey guys, welcome back. Before that break, I was talking to you guys about Missouri becoming the first state to resume concerts and live events as early as Monday, May 4th. Today. And I was also talking to you guys about how even though the governor basically said that, they're planning on reopening, a lot of their major cities are saying that's great, but we're not doing that. And how I basically, kind of agree with that said mayor about, looking at the data of the people who are still being affected by COVID-19 compared to people just being in a rush and being in a hurry to open businesses back up. And also with that, I also wanted to talk about Italy. Italy is officially reopening after 2 months of lockdown. The coronavirus outbreak was devastating to many countries around the world, but Italy in particular was one of the many that was hit the hardest. Now, 2 months later, Italy has officially started the gradual process of reopening following a strict lockdown that residents are likely relieved is finally over. 4.4 million Italian residents will officially be allowed to return to work after being confined to their homes since early March, following strict lockdown orders to curb the spread of the coronavirus outbreak. You'll recall, you guys can recall that Italy was the first European country to have a serious outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, hopefully, with the worst of the virus behind them, Italy is entering the phase 2 of its country's wide lockdown, as companies reopen for the first time with social distancing measures strictly being enforced. Reopening measures include Italy required to wear face masks on public transportations in public spaces, and they're being allowed to leave their regions for health reasons, work, or other reasons, possibly including grocery shopping, or to return to a resident, or grocery shopping. For those returning to work, workplaces will now have to limit contact between employees who will wear masks. To date, there have been more than 28,000 deaths in the country and 210,000 people who have tested positive for the coronavirus. However, things are looking up for Italy. The country has continued to see a recent decrease in the daily death toll and hospitalizations, with just 174 people dying less than 24 hours ago. The second phase of the reopening is up next, and the guidelines state during that phase, restaurants will be open for takeout and delivery, and funeral service can be attended by up to 15 people as long as everyone in attendance wears a mask. Additionally, those who still exhibit coronavirus symptoms or have a fever of more than 37.5 degrees Celsius must stay at home. For those of you guys who are wondering what in the heck is 37.5 Celsius, that is 99.5 degrees. Okay, so if you have a 99.5 temp or higher, you have to stay at home. And I think that goes hand in hand with what the mayor from my last segment was talking to us about, which was looking more at data than looking more at dates. What I like about what Italy did is that they sat back and they did everything that they could to help their residents, to make sure that that everyone was okay, and actually sat down and looked at the data and, did everything that they could. And after they did that, they looked at the data, they saw the huge decrease. They didn't just, spring on the decrease and say, oh, there's a slight decrease, let's open it up. Instead, they were like, okay, here's a small decrease. Let's wait until it decreases down more. It kept decreasing. And finally, they were like, okay, let's enter into phase 2 just to see where we go. Or let's go to phase 2 just to see where we go from there. And I feel like that's something that the United States should do. Now, given the United States is a lot bigger, but I just still feel like there's so much that we're missing out on because we're so quick to try to jump the gun. We're so quick to try to do all of these things, and in return, we're ending up affecting a lot more people because we're not really thinking things through. do I feel like it's slightly helpful? I mean, to a point, to an extent. And that's the same thing for Italy, just being strictly strict with all of their guidelines instead of just opening everything back up quickly or, doing things that can affect everyone. I also feel like it's like a group effect as well. I feel like the Italy residents has seen this pandemic, and I feel like that's the same thing that a lot of Americans have. We have seen this pandemic, but you can just see the difference between, what residents in Italy are doing and what residents in America are doing, what Italians are doing and what Americans are doing. Americans are trying our best to just shoot the gun too quick. We're trying to race to do everything quickly and to go back to normal. And I feel like Italy is understanding that this is not normal. There is no way we can go back to living a normal life after dealing with something such as this. I often wonder also if it has to do with people who are trying to people please other people. What I mean by that is I feel like a lot of our governors, a lot of our mayors are trying to people please some of these people who want to hurry up and get out of quarantine. And I feel like there's some resistance, but majority of it is not of resistance. Given we did have to be in quarantine, but I'm just going to leave it alone here. I said what I said and I felt what I felt. And with that being said, I'm going to leave this segment right here, just the way it is. You guys can tell me what you guys feel. Do you guys feel like America is trying to open up its phase 2 a little too quickly to appease different people who might be protesting just so they can open up businesses? Or do you feel like, they should, push back a little bit and look at data and, make sure that that there actually is results on people testing negative of having the coronavirus so people can be safe? With that being said, that is the end of this second segment. And on this third segment, we have some crazy news going on. We're going to stop all of this talk about COVID-19. And in our next segments, we're going to talk about some celebrity news and some wild and crazy news all going on here on social media. Stick around.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco, ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
In the last segment, I was talking to you guys about Italy officially reopening following a 2-month lockdown, and basically how they had to do it because Italy was hit the hardest by the coronavirus, and how, they're slowly opening up and slowly trying to pick the pieces back up of what was once normal, and how they are going to recreate what they now define as normal. In this segment, I wanted to talk about Carole Baskin being tricked into a post-Tiger King interview with fake producers. Yes, I know, you heard it right. 2 British YouTube pranksters tricked Carole Baskin into giving her first post-Tiger King interview by stating they worked for comedian and late-night TV host Jimmy Fallon. According to TMZ, the 2 men named Archie Manners and Joe Peters managed to snag an interview with Joe Exotic's rival, Carole Baskin, by pretending they were producers for the late-night show with Jimmy Fallon. At first, Carole Baskin had her husband, Howard, turned them down after stating to Netflix, falsely implying that Carole was involved in the disappearance and presumed death of her first husband, Don. The pair sent more emails and said they will not discuss anything related to Tiger King and its affiliates, but will focus on her sanctuary. In the video clip, the pranksters managed to use old voice clips from Fallon's previous interviews so it could sound like he was interviewing Baskin during the Zoom call. The interview begins with the men asking Carole to list her favorite tigers during a sound check. Then Fallon's title card begins with Fallon asking Baskin how she was doing and what she's been up to. Baskin said she had let go of half of her staff due to the COVID-19 pandemic affecting their revenue. However, the animals are being cared for by big cat rescue volunteers. Currently, the sanctuary has 55 big cats, which includes bobcats, tigers, jaguars, etc. They even convinced her to say, "Hey, all you cool cats and kittens," with her infamous flower crown, or a happy Lee, as she said. She also sent never-before videos of the cats to be used during the interview. So how do I feel about this whole thing? I may be the only person in the world that feels this, I feel like Carol Baskin is a hypocrite. She was talking about Joe Exotic having these wild animals caged, but wasn't Carol Baskin doing the same thing? I mean, she just stated that there was 55 cats, including, like she just said, bobcats, tigers, jaguars, and etc., which could also amplify to lions. So I'm trying to figure out, what is she doing differently that Joe Exotic was not doing, or what is she doing differently that makes her better? Does she only want to be the only one that has these big tigers, or does she really believe that she's doing something better by having the tigers and that no one else should? I just feel like, first off, I hate to say it, but I do feel like she killed her husband. Maybe over disagreements. Maybe to me, she just seems as if someone who just likes a lot of control. There's nothing wrong with wanting control. There's kind of, but we're not going to talk about that. There's a little bit of wanting control, but in her case, I think she wants control over everything. She wants control over the people who have these big cats. I think she only wants to be the one that has these big cats. And at the same time, I think she's just someone who maybe didn't want her secret out. If she feels and if she knows for a fact that she had no involvement in her first husband's disappearance, then she would not have had any problem with taking a lie detector test or being asked certain questions. It's a liable question. If she can have people question Joe Exotic and question all of her family members, or in this case, her first husband's family, I don't understand what makes her so different. I think she thinks in her head that she's this like really big person because she's kind of annoying and she's that annoying person that can get the job done. But I think she has in her head that she is this really big person, but in actuality, she's not. And when anyone questions her or goes after her the same way she goes after different companies for having big cats or having a different opinion, I think she takes some type of I think she has some type of problem with that, which results in people disappearing, money being lost, a person being sued, finding some way to hurt that person. She did it to her first husband, and I truly believe that. And she also did it to Joe Exotic. Now, given Joe Exotic did put some of the pressure on himself by just going at it a little too hard, but with Carol Baskin, I just believe that there are a lot of things that are coming her way, and for a good reason. There's a certain thing called karma, and when you do people dirty and do people bad, things turn around to bite you. So there's only some things that people can edit. People cannot edit hypocrisy, and people cannot edit someone's aura. To me, she just comes off condescending, and I think she kind of brung it on herself too. As far as these pranksters go, I think it's very unique how they did it, how you edit, how you edit someone's voice. Do I feel like it was right? No. It's just the integrity for a lot of people is slowly starting to demise, so you never know who you're truly talking to. Also, now that's going to hurt and hinder the chances of Carol Baskin going and doing more interviews with different people now that she knows that she's just been bamboozled by someone who is not the real Jim Fallon, which also, I mean, that has to raise my eyebrow on that too, which is, why was she just talking to Jim Fallon and not talking to other people? Was it to truly bring in money to help not lay off more workers? Or was it strictly for her own selfish benefit? So she might say that she does not like Joe Exotic, but I feel like in some ways she's exactly like Joe Exotic. And I think, or for my family personally, when a person is too similar and when a person is too alike, many times they don't get along. So I feel like we can see that kind of in Joe Exotic and Carole Baskin. They're so similar that they just don't like each other. And I think that's what kind of brought them into the place that they are now. So with that being said, that is the end of this segment. In the next segment, we're going to talk about a woman who was arrested for placing her son in a hot car. Guys, I cannot make this up. This is going to get you so angry. I know for a fact because it got me angry. And this lady deserved every amount of time that she got. We're going to talk about her right after this break. Stay tuned.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now. Don't bother. What's hot on Netflix and everything in between. That's gsmcpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Before that break, we were talking about Carole Baskin being tricked into a post-Tiger King interview with fake producers and how, the producers were wrong because now that may affect us into ever getting more details about Carole Baskin and her possible, murder and her husband, but also, we were also talking about her hypocrisy, about wanting to close down people who have these big cat resorts, but how she's kind of doing something similar because she has 55 big cats and how she had to, what she has had to do to, maintain her big cat rescue. We were also talking about, how her and Joe Exotic are just so similar, and maybe that is the reason as to why they just do not get along whatsoever. That's always said. If you do not agree or get along with someone, many times it's because y'all's character and personality is just so alike that it clashes. So with that, that was a very interesting segment. In this segment, this is something that's going to make you a little angry. Actually, for me, I grew very angry. In South Carolina, a 25-year-old woman by the name of Destiny Leanne Brogan was charged with cruelty to a child after she allegedly punished her son by placing him in a hot vehicle during a trip to the beach. Horry County Police said in a report that they responded to a call about a suspected child abuse near a beach on Calhoun Drive. Officers found Brogan's 7-year-old son in the back of a Honda Civic, and he appeared flushed and frightened. Brogan explained that she was mad at her son for throwing sand at his little brother. The boy also told police that his mother spanked him before she threw him in the car. A witness said they saw Brogan grab her son by the arm and spank him several times, grabbed him by the neck, and then pushed him into the Honda Civic. Brogan said she only told her son to, quote, return to the beach when he was ready, end quote. The recorded temperature at the time of the incident was 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Brogan was arrested and later released from the J. Rugen Long Detention Center on a $2,500 bond on Thursday. So what are my thoughts, feelings, opinions? What words can I form? I don't know what makes me more angry. The fact that this woman was arrested and then later released so early, or the fact that the bond was $2,500. I think what makes me even more angry is the fact that this has probably happened before. I understand about getting, frustrated with your kids, because little kids can be boogers. They can. I love my niece, but she has that cry, that certain cry that hits your nerve. But as a parent or as a guardian, it is your job to protect them, but discipline them in the best way possible. And there's a huge line between discipline and child abuse. The moment that she decided that she was going to spank him several times and grab his neck and put him in the car, there should have been some type of intervention. Someone should have watched out for that child, because anything could have happened. There's a blessing, that this young man, that this boy was found in the time that he was, because let's say that the degree was up higher. He was already flushed. Okay. First off, he was already flushed. All right. So if the cops would have found him a little bit later, would he have passed away from overheating or anything? I feel like there was a small sense of questioning, but after that, there was nothing that was really essentially done. And also that should bring awareness on child abuse. Child abuse has been, skyrocketing because of this quarantine. So this is just one case. Think about the many cases around the world over something small, such as putting sand. Who's to say that little boy wasn't throwing sand at his brother playing? I've seen kids at the beach do that. They throw sand at one another as fun. Maybe they were picking on one another, but there's no reason as to why you handle your child like that. Now, given we don't know how old he was, we don't know, anything of that sort, but let's just say he was a toddler and she grabbed this little boy's neck. What if she snapped it? That could quickly turn into a murder case. But it just baffles me again as to why her bond was so low, and also why she was released so quickly, and how they handled it too. It was almost like this case just hurts me, and it, you never know. With that being said, I had to talk about this case because it just really grinded my gears, and just trying to figure out why exactly she essentially got away with something this crucial. She placed her child's life at risk, not only by grabbing this child's neck, which could have choked them and killed them, but also by placing him in a hot vehicle. Okay, so it might be 75 degrees outside, but you never know how hot it is inside of a car. A car could be twice or 10 times as hot compared to how hot it is outside. So I'm not understanding how she wasn't booked in child endangerment and as well as child abuse. I don't understand how she was essentially sent away with a slap on her wrist and on her hand, and she gets her kids back. I don't know, maybe there needs to be more investigation on her, but as sensing as, abuse is at an all-time high because of the quarantine, not only, for people, but for children as well. And this is a prime example of how people can get away with something so evil. And it wouldn't surprise me if she goes and does it again, or even hurts that child more because it got her in trouble. So I feel like the police need to do a little bit more digging on this lady and a little bit more digging on that child to make sure that this child is okay. The last thing we need is for a child to essentially pass away and then have the system now say, oh, we shoulda, coulda, woulda done this, but no one did. This woman was in their grasps and they just let her go. So I have to move on because I can feel myself getting angry. There is more to come right after this break. Stay tuned.
Always on the go, but the day just won't be one without your Hollywood fix. Let Golden State Media Concepts Entertainment Podcast take care of that. Jordan and Keith is Entertainment Tonight meets Access Hollywood.
I'm Jordan. The guy laughing, that's Keith.
Yeah, I'm Keith.
An all-inclusive look of pop culture.
Hey guys, welcome back. Before that break, I have to admit I had to take a quick breather. Otherwise, I would have just grown so angry and I would have vented for the rest of this podcast. But I had to get it together. I had to keep it together. I just have a very sensitive spot for kids. And domestic violence to me is never okay, but a child is essentially innocent. Many times they're so innocent that they don't know what is going on. And so for someone who is bigger than them to do something so cruel to someone, it grinds my gears and it makes me very angry. But I felt like this story had to be said because there's so many people going through what this child is going through. And there is no reason as to why our justice system has let someone like this, who has possibly been doing this, get away with this, because now they possibly feel like they've cheated the system once, they can cheat the system twice. And my heart just goes out for that little boy and any child that's facing child abuse. Sorry. In this segment, I wanted to talk about a Texas college student who was found a year after he disappeared, and the 3 men that were arrested because of his death. So exactly 1 year to the day that a Texas college student was reported missing, authorities found what they believe to be his body, and they arrested 3 men who are now behind bars on murder charges. According to People magazine, 21-year-old Zahir Kaleem of Katy, Texas was last seen on April 28, 2019. and the Harris County Sheriff's Office officially classified his disappearance as a homicide last August. Last Saturday, April 25th, police arrested two men, Jose Varela and Austin Walker, after speaking with officers. Both made statements allegedly admitting to their role in the murder of Kaleem. By Tuesday, officers had tracked down a third man, who is Eric Aguilar, and arrested him. Aguilar directed cops to a home in nearby Grimes County where a fourth man, Ghanan Ghatalib, allegedly admitted to authorities that he buried Kaleem's body on his property in the community of Todd Mission. While a forensic investigation to confirm the identity of the remains is still pending, the Harris County Sheriff's Office told people they were believed to the remains of Kaleem. Harris County Sheriff Ed Gonzalez, it stated, quote, "Our condolences go out to his family," end quote. Kaleem's family said he was enrolled at Lone Star College with hopes to attend the University of Houston in the future. Authorities believed Kaleem was the victim of a drug deal gone bad. The suspects, Valero, Walker, and Aguilar, were charged with capital murder and are being held in Harris County Jail. Aguilar's bond was set at $200,000. The other two received no bond, according to the online court records. Ghatalib is accused of tampering with a human corpse and is still being held in the Grimes County Jail, but no information regarding his bond was available at that moment. So what is my feelings about this whole thing? It's always so sad for me whenever I see murders like this, especially in my home state of Texas. And it's always so sad to see a young life lost. They're stating that it might have been a drug deal gone bad. And you never know who exactly you're talking to. So whether it was a drug deal gone bad or maybe if it was something else, it's always good to know who exactly you're talking to. We don't exactly know who these young men were to Kaleem, but it's always, in my opinion, good to know who certain people are. Given you never know who people truly are. A lot of people are two-faced. Maybe one of these people were his friends and they backstabbed him. But in the light of this, the good thing about this is that there was a bottom line to who killed this young man. There has been many cases all over the world where a young man and a young man of color was killed and his killer was never found, essentially making his case cold, and his family pleading, to find out who exactly killed their family member. A lot of people are not that blessed. A lot of people have to speculate and wonder, like, who would have done this? Why would they have done this? Or maybe even, finding out where his body is. Sometimes a young person disappears out of thin air and their body is never found. So it's not good about the situation, but it's good because this young man's killer was found and essentially this case was closed. And I feel like these young men, got what was they got their due diligence. You can't commit a murder and then think you can get away with it. This is a capital murder charge, and I feel like this was the best charge for these young men. It sucks that, these guys are so young. They have their whole lives ahead of them too. That sucks for them, but a life for a life. Hopefully they can sit in jail and really think about the crime they committed to this young man and really think about why they exactly killed this young man. Was it over a substance? Was it over a disagreement? Or if it was over something else? None of that is worth you spending the rest of your life in jail and losing your freedom over a disagreement or over a substance. But again, that's the sad truth. So my heart and my condolences goes out to the Kaleem family, and I wish nothing but the best for them going forward. With that being said, that is the end of this 5th segment. In the next segment, we're going to be talking about Carnival, the cruise ship Carnival. And all of that is coming up in this next segment. Stay tuned, guys.
The GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
So we are here at the end of our podcast. It's been crazy. We have some news about the cruise ship Carnival, but before that, I wanted to do a quick rundown over everything that we talked about in today's social media news. We talked about Missouri being the first state to open back up for concerts and how exactly they're planning on doing that. But not everyone in the state of Missouri is planning on going with what the governor has stated. We also talked about Italy reopening their doors and how they're trying to navigate in creating what is now going to be considered normal for them. Then we talked about Carol Baskin and how she was tricked into a post-Tiger King interview with fake producers on YouTube, how exactly they created or how they exactly the YouTubers, transpired and deceived Carol Baskin, but also how she has done some shady stuff in the past and, basically how these things are going to come up to catch her. Also, we talked about a woman in South Carolina who was arrested for placing her son in a hot car and some of the child abuse that she has done to her own child and basically, how she was let off essentially with a slap on her wrist. And then finally, we talked about a Texas college student whose remains were found and 3 of his killers were brought to justice and how one is pending right now because of his involvement in the murder and how it's a sad deal. It's a sad thing because this young man was killed, but it's a good thing because not only was his murderers brought to justice, but now, his death is not going in vain. He hopefully was found, his body hopefully was found, and his case has now been closed. And finally, we are about to talk about the Carnival cruise ship. So here's the story on that. Carnival Cruise Line announced plans Monday to resume service beginning August 1st, despite concerns from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention that cruise ship travel exacerbates the global spread of COVID-19. Carnival Cruise Line, which is owned by Carnival Corp., said it advised travel agents on Monday that 8 of its ships will return to service on August 1st. 3 of its ships will set sail from Galveston, Texas. The company said that 3 others will sail from Miami. The company said 2 of its ships will sail from Miami. Carnival insists that they are taking COVID-19 seriously and intend to keep safety first. One of the ways they are taking precautions is by halting North American and Australian cruises until August 31st, which many agree is the opposite of taking safety seriously, and the cruises should be halted till at least next year. So what are my opinions on this? It's so easy for someone to say that they are doing their best to, make sure that everyone is safe and, to make sure that everyone is doing well. But I just feel that, after watching the protests and after watching the businesses and, people doing their best to, stay safe and everything, I just feel like at the end of the day, money does speak, especially in a certain way. At the end of the day, Carnival needed to make money. And at the end of the day, there are quite a lot of people that are still going to purchase tickets and that are still going to get on the cruise ship and proceed to go on trips. I also am a type of person that believes actions speak louder than words. So I need to see actions that Carnival is planning on doing. Like, how are they going to keep their staff safe? And as well as how are they going to keep, their clients safe as well? You're on a cruise ship, so you're kind of confined with someone. And let's not forget, you're in the middle of the ocean. So there's no real way that you can possibly social distance yourself from someone, especially if, you're in a confined space, even for the crew members, you're in a confined space. So it's just going to be interesting to see, how they intend on keeping everyone safe. With that being said, that is the end of today's show. I would like to thank you for listening to the GSMC Social Media News Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review, because that really helps us out. Also, be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms, including Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I would like to thank you, and I want you guys to have a good night, a good day, and everything in between. I am your host, Shamaria Jackson, signing out. Bye, guys.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Social Media Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.